Okay, hi everyone. It's PK here. I'm really excited in this show, whether you're listening on my podcast, whether you're listening here on YouTube, whether you're listening on my Facebook group with more than 8,000 people. This video is going to be talking about Development 101. So many of you have already got investment properties. So many of you are about to get investment properties, but you're sort of thinking, hey, I've already made hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've already started my passive income journey, or I'm about to do that. How can I accelerate this thing? I've got some spare time. I've got some spare cash. It doesn't need to be hundreds of thousands. I've got a little bit there. How can I escape my 9 to 5, as cliche as that sound? How can I do that quicker? Because that's really where I was maybe 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago when I started this. I was actually consuming videos like this and audio like this. I was thinking, all right, well, I can do this buy and hold thing, but can I do something on the side whereby I can accelerate that? So I've got my friend Adam here, who is actually a pretty good developer, really successful developer. He has done more than 10, I think 12 actually, to be precise, 12 development projects made without kind of, coming across as, wanky and all that. He's made millions of dollars, all that kind of jazz. He's not the Mark Rolton. He's not the Dimfno Bahut that I know you guys know about, just grassroots developer, humble, quiet. You'll hear from him in a second. But I got him on this video, on this show, to really educate you guys how to go from where you are right now into your first development. How can you make sure that development is right for you? What is the potential that development can give for you? And how does it take, or what does it take to actually be successful in it? So kind of piling on the pressure here on Adam, but yeah, I'll give the mic over to him in a second, but thank you for joining us, and hopefully this episode brings a ton of value. So thanks for making time, Adam.
That's all right. Thanks, PK. Thanks for having me.
No dramas, no dramas. So, I know you, of course, we've worked together for a long time, but if you could just, elevator pitch, or say, not sales pitch, elevator pitch or whatever, like, who are you, and like, what's been your development experience? I know you used to be an engineer, you're quite a successful civil engineer. You made that transition because you don't want to work for someone else for the rest of your life. Just talk us through that sort of background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I suppose for the guys that are listening, we've known each other for a long time. So you've seen me come through. I was working full time. Sorry, coming in. Don't mind me. We're being recorded on the phone. So yeah, I mean, we first met probably 8 years ago. I was working as a civil engineer. I did really well at uni, so I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are really well educated. You're in a 9 to 5 job. You're getting paid really well for it. I mean, I was a 22-year-old kid, really, finished university, but had a bit of experience, and on pretty much a 6-figure salary, not too far out of uni. So you get really comfortable being that sort of money. And what I actually did, which nobody else I saw do, I spent pretty much all of my savings on people mentoring me. So yeah, I was on a really good salary, but all my spare cash I spent on, first of all, I did a development course. I did that when I was 22, straight out of university. And I loved engineering. What I didn't like was working for somebody else, working for the boss. And at that time, I saw my boss and my boss's boss and my boss's boss's boss, and there was a lot of people up the tree. And I remember going to my boss's house. Actually, it was a couple of lines up, so it was like my third boss in line. I went to his house. He's in his late 40s, and I thought, you know what? You work on every Saturday. We're working 60, 70 hours a week. And I was thinking, you live in this house? Like, it wasn't special. And I think he had one investment property. And I'm like, this isn't for me. So for me, it was more about what I didn't want, or I saw what I didn't want. Loved engineering. Loved running construction sites, doing design. Absolutely loved all that stuff. First class honours at university. Once you finish, it means nothing. Yeah. Other than I've got it sitting in my cupboard at the moment, and on occasions I might look at it and think back, I remember all the hard work I did at university. PK, you probably relate to that.
Yeah, I took the easier subject, Bachelor of Commerce, and because I didn't want to study, so I was just like, let's just go through this as fast as possible.
Yeah, I was unfortunately one of those guys at uni that didn't do the partying. I waited till a bit after to do a very mild partying. Anyway, worked really hard at uni. finished, I actually spent a lot of my savings at the time. As soon as I finished university, I went and did a course. It cost me $5,500. I put it on the credit card because I didn't have the money to pay for it. So yeah, it went on the credit card, and 6 months later, so I was still 22, I contracted a $1.1 million development site. This was in 2010. So 11 years ago. I'm 33 now, giving away my age. Hopefully you can't see too many wrinkles. So contracted my first development site, which was in a suburb called Morningside, 5 kilometres east of Brisbane CBD. And how I actually did that was using none of my own money. So I went to this course, paid $5,500. They said you can do property development using none of your own money. I was like, great, I'm going to do that. And the funny part was that I actually believed that person and actually went and did it. So I think most of what holds people back is disbelief. So, I mean, if you wholeheartedly believe in something, and there's many books written about this, Think and Grow Rich, Power of Positive Thinking. If you wholeheartedly believe in something, if people tell you no, you kind of look at them like, excuse me, what? No, I know it's possible. I just saw this other person do it. So
yeah.
If I did it, I know that it's possible. So that development ended up being a $3 million end value development. So I bought it for 1.1. So yeah, first development down, $3 million end value, made some money on it, completed that. Last one sold in 2013. Since then, I've done a dozen renovations, small 1 into 2s, 1 into 3s, 1 into 7, 1 into 10. And at the moment, the company that I'm a director of, which is AdPen, so AdPen Properties, we've got a bit over $100 million in the pipeline, and that's due to be completed in the next couple of years. That literally all started from doing a development course over 10 years ago, where someone told me you could buy property using none of your own money. So yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy ride when I think about over 10 years ago, and now developing multi-$100 million projects in my combination between all of them. And I was just mentioning to you before that I'm looking at buying, larger land subdivisions. There's one I'm working on at the moment, which I didn't mention to you, but it's 500 lots.
Yeah.
So larger scale developments like that. And the reason is that there's a lot of small developments and there's a lot of people playing in that smaller space.
Yeah.
And you can make really good money in that smaller space. I've seen guys make, and I've grown up with guys that have been mentored by coaches and been around that scene. So I've seen a group of guys doing splitters, 1 into 2s, 1 into 3, 4. One of my clients, one of my investors, actually just does renovations. He made $500,000 last year from doing renovations. And he said he was on track to do $1 million this year. So there's some serious money to be made at the small end and at the big end of town. You just got to know really the hacks, and it's only a few little things that you need to know to be different from everybody else that's trying to do it or trying to make money from it.
Yeah.
There's, one little hack could make you $100,000. So I saw it like that. I invested over the last 10 years. I've probably invested, I don't know, maybe 300,000 or 400,000, probably more actually, in mentors.
That's crazy.
People coaching me, and when you're investing that sort of money, you make it work.
Yeah. There best be a return on investment on 400K of courses and mentors, and geez, yeah, that's a lot of money. We're definitely not recommending people start off with that kind of money to splurge. It's a great story, right? And so you started with nothing, and the thing that I always said to you, even from when we first met, was you kind of have developers who become successful and they kind of then they start wearing the suits and they start driving the cars. Nothing wrong with that, but the suits and the cars, they melt into their mind and they become very materialistic. Adam, excuse me, guys. Adam's family man, young family. The thing is that most people who are probably watching this, you guys that are watching this, you're not wanting to buy the fancy car. You're not wanting to get the $2,000 suit. In fact, I just sold all my expensive suits because I'm never going back to work, right? I don't even want a suit. You just want freedom. And that's really what you want. And the thing that you said before, Adam, that if you know something can happen, if you know something can exist, if you know something can transpire, then when someone says no to it, you're just like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Like the world is a reflection of your own consciousness. And so you've kind of, I wouldn't say you've made it, but you're definitely making a difference to your family, to your clients, to your investors. You know, you're living your passion. But what, you know, the people that are watching this, listening to this, they want to know what can they do about it? So, you know, you're probably listening to this, you're probably watching this right now, guys, and you're thinking, all right, well, I'm in a 9-to-5 job, I'm an accountant, or I'm in banking, or I'm in IT, or I'm in finance or engineering, or whatever profession. I do want to leave my work, not because I hate it necessarily, but I don't want to be doing this the rest of my life. I want to be earning an income of at least $100,000 passively, hopefully through property. How can I get into development? Like, Adam, what advice can you give people? What is the first step that they should do, not to become like you, because we should never imitate or copy others, but to you know, resemble your type of success? What's the first step they need to do? So they've got maybe a wife or husband, they've got kids. What should they start doing right now? You know, beyond just the kind of, oh, just get educated, you know, that kind of thing. Like, tell us. And this is the kind of stuff I'd be genuinely interested to know if I was in those shoes as well.
That's a good question. I was going to say get educated.
Because that's obvious, right? People are listening to this or watching this because they're getting educated. Like, what are some pearls of wisdom that you would have loved to hear in those shoes when you were 10 years ago? Like, if you could share some.
Yeah, I think looking back, actually, the advice that I got, I think, was pretty good. You can buy property with none of your own money. That was a pretty good, like when you're 22, just finished uni. I didn't have a lot of savings. It was, I mean, someone told me you can buy property with no money down. I was like, okay, like there's no questioning. And it's funny talking to people that are a bit older, generally older. I'm not saying that about everyone, but they've been conditioned. They've been conditioned by what other people have said. And you know as well as anyone, you can do, if someone's already done it, it's possible. So you know, I'm a testament to that. There's a lot of guys that have watched me through the last 10, 11 years, and I've been involved in a lot of property groups over that time. Not so much in the last few years, but early on in the piece, I mean, I used to go to property meetups, meet a lot of people that were doing it, listen to other people that had done deals, and you just, I suppose, listening to people that have actually done it, being there, whether it's anything from renovation through to, you know, a large scale development, there's always little nuggets that you pick up along the way. So I used to think if I went to a course and it was, whether it was free or $100 or whatever it was, I just thought, even if I just got one thing out of that course that could make me 5 or 10 grand, like that was worth sitting there and listening for a weekend or a day. So I did used to go to a lot of different courses. What I came to realize, and I don't want to paint this in a negative light, but what I did come to realize after some time is most of those people running courses actually didn't do it themselves. So not all of the strategies, and I don't want to sound negative, but most of the strategies are a bit BS. And now looking at, I mean, sometimes I see guys posting stuff about their developments, and I don't like when people put false information up on things about the development. There are particular strategies that can make you a lot of money, and there's a reason why big developers get to be big developers is everyone had to start from somewhere. And I suppose getting to that bigger end of town, they know strategies that, you know, other people don't. So I've met developers, many of them that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, even billions of dollars, through other people, just being in that circle. And I can guarantee they're not teaching courses. But I mean, that aside, I don't want to sound negative, that aside, one strategy that could be, you know, vendor finance, or, you know, how to get an investor on a project, or even just how to buy a project off market, 10% under market value. Just those strategies, they can be, you can apply them to not even development sites, just buying just a renovation, or even just a buy and hold. So the same strategy or same skill set can be transferred across no matter what you're doing, buying any particular property. And I suppose it's just looking through the lens a little bit different. So if you look for something, you always find it. So, you know, if you're looking for the color blue, for example, you're always going to find the color blue.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're looking for, you will always find. So what I find a lot with a lot of my clients, and when I say clients, that's people that either joint venture or invest in projects with me. A lot of those guys are do their own developments. And what they generally do is they have a model. So everyone has their own little niche, and it's about finding the niche. So at the moment, I realize my niche, and I was just saying to you before, my niche is land subdivisions and commercial mixed use. So mixed use retail, fuel, fast food, childcare, shopping center. That's currently my niche, those two models. So when I look at a site, I'm looking at it through that lens. So if you're looking for, say, for example, a renovation, you're going to look at a property through that lens. And once you look at enough, that model just becomes like instinct. You see a property, as long as you know that area in that market, you see a property, like, bang, that's a good deal. You see a property, no. So it's just about like getting through the rough to find the diamond. So,
yeah,
you know, when you think of like sieving, like when people used to sieve for gold. So
yeah.
you just got to sieve through a lot. You find a good one, you just know it straight away. And it depends on what lens you're looking through. So if you're looking for splitters, if you're looking for 1 into 3, 1 into 4, you just develop a model that you stick to. I see a lot of guys that they're looking for development sites from Cairns to Sydney to Melbourne, and that's their target area. So how can you know such a big target area? So it's about being focused. I mean, you might spray a lot of paint on a wall or throw a lot of mud on a wall. Some of it might stick, as I'm sure people have probably heard that saying.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it might stick, but when you target and laser focus and you know exactly what you're looking for, you find it pops up. If you're looking for the color blue, you're going to find it. If you're looking for blue, pink, red, orange, green, turquoise, you know, there could be a lot of different colors coming up, and you think, oh, what am I looking for again? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And like in the development space, the thing that I always learned and the thing that I was always taught was try to understand all the strategies at a high level, but then go deep into one. And then when you go deep into one strategy, focus really only just on 1 or 2 or 3 suburbs or a small part of an LGA. And then really become an area expert. And so then you can very quickly reverse engineer all the development deals that have happened with that strategy, let's say a 1 into 3, and you know exactly which ones were profitable because you reverse engineer the outcome, and then you can just replicate what was actually practical, possible, and profitable. So yeah, that point of becoming niche, of being laser focused is really interesting. I think people often get confused because there are so many strategies, right? Like, just to name a few, obviously there's your passive strategies, which isn't development, which is just buy and hold. And then there's you buy, renovate, and hold, which is still fairly passive. Buy, renovate, sell, and then, you know, cosmetically, then buy, renovate, sell structurally. Then you've got small things like splitting blocks, and then 1 into 2 subdivisions. Then you've got, you know, 1 into 2, 3, 4 townhouses, and then you've got more commercial where you're building a, you know, service station adjoining a fast food retail outlet, and then you've got large scale subdivision. There's so much stuff, right? Like, I'm just talking about a few. For the person who just wants to get going, is a small renovation, cosmetic buy, renovate, sell, is that what they should be focusing on, Adam? Or is that a little bit, you know, too small? Should they go straight into buy, renovate structurally and sell? Is that where they should start? Or is it entirely possible for someone brand new off the street, no experience in development, for them to be able to do a 1 into 2 subdivision and build, you know, townhouse or a spec home at the back, or a 1 into 4 townhouse development? Like, what is possible? What should people be thinking about when they're thinking of becoming a developer?
Yeah, anything's possible. We each have a certain skill set. I'm an engineer, so I've got strengths. I also have a lot of weaknesses. So you mentioned like the strategies. I think there's really, just to define it and make it really clean cut, there's 2 strategies. One is passive, buy and hold. The other one is active. So don't be fooled. Buy and hold is very different to buy and develop. What I've found though is you make your money when you buy, and a lot of time is spent in actually sourcing the property. So once you find a good property, imagine finding a good buy and hold where you've just made like 100 grand on buying it, just an average property. You bought it, that's $1 million. You just bought it 10% on the market value. There's 100 grand. That's more than the average income per year. And you've just done it on one deal. So if it took you a year to find it, it will have been worth it. So imagine going in, buying a property, looking at it as a buy and hold, you make 100 grand, and then over time it grows. And you literally don't have to do anything. Maybe you have to give it a paint job every so often. You get a tenant in there, you change the taps, whatever. So that's your passive. And then on the active side, think about making 100 grand on the way in, but then there's an upside of another 200,000, and you can do that over 12 to 18 months. So all of a sudden you've like accelerated what like normal buy and hold, you've just accelerated the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And once you do that, once you add the value, you can either sell it and then, cash in your chips and go again.
Yeah.
Or you can keep it, refinance, pull out your equity, and go again and do it again. And there are particular ways that you can really buy unlimited properties. That finance space has changed a lot in the last 5-10 years. It used to be a lot easier to just keep buying properties, as I'm sure a lot of people would have told you. There is still a way to do it. It's a little bit more complicated than what it used to be. So it's really just about accelerating what you're like a buy and hold. You buy and hold, you're just waiting for the market. And really, when you come from a development perspective, you assume that the market's just going to go flat. And then think about, what about if the market goes down? How do you mitigate your risk? So first and foremost, you make your money when you buy. Development is just a manufactured growth as part of the property.
Yeah.
So your question, I haven't answered specifically your question yet about what strategy is possible. I once heard from someone to think big, start small. So learn a lot of mistakes, and you will. It's just inevitable. You will learn mistakes along the way. The reason I paid many hundreds of thousands of dollars for mentors over the years is I tried to avoid a lot of those mistakes, which paid off handsomely. I also still made a lot of mistakes. But yeah, look, I mean, there's no reason why someone with no prior experience cannot do a cosmetic renovation and make 50 or 100,000 on a cosmetic renovation. Same with, a 1 into 2. I've seen people do like 1 into 5, 1 into 10 with no prior education, no industry background into development. And also, I mean, in saying that, you don't actually need to do the construction to make money from development. A lot of it, and a lot of the wealth is actually made from the paper change. So that may be buying under market, buying in a great area similar to buy and hold, but then doing a paper change, like a change of use, or splitting the title. Like nothing physically changes on the property.
Yeah.
So it's more about connecting the people to the development as such. So you've got expert consultants. You don't need to be an expert. All you need to know is, hey, what's consultant A telling me, and can I get a better outcome out of consultant B?
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to put it. I think you told me once, or it might have been you or someone else, that a developer is really just like the conductor in the symphony orchestra. You don't know how to play that trombone or the violin or the grand piano or any of that. You just know how to make sure that they are playing well enough and they are playing in sync. And so I know that one of the questions that people have is like, what is the process? So like, let's say we have found a corner block, a big house, 1,000 square meters, let's say in Brisbane City Council. Not our favorite council, but let's just go with that.
No, we love Brisbane City Council. I've got many in here.
Yeah, I know. Politics aside, but let's say you want to split that in 4, I'm just making this up, right? And you want to build 4 townhouses. Let's just go with that. Like, in a few minutes, can you maybe run through the high level process that someone has to go through from finding the site all the way to settling the last sale of the 4th townhouse? Like, what are the, top 5, top 7, top 8 processes or key steps? What's involved with that, just so people can kind of wrap their head around the entire process?
Okay, all right. So I suppose step one is buying the property, and I prefer to buy properties off market, especially now that the market is hot. I don't rule out on market sites. So buying well, you either buy from someone who's motivated, or buy from a motivated agent. So on market, off market, generally off market or direct, you can get a better deal, hopefully. One thing you can get off market is terms. A lot of real estate agents don't understand terms. And what I mean by that is buying the property, and I'm sure everybody's heard of options. Everyone bangs on about options. But really, there's actually really simple ways to do options without an option contract. An option for those people that don't know, is the right but not the obligation to purchase. So you control the property without actually owning it. And from a developer's perspective, that's really great to be able to control it. It means you can lodge the application and you can do a whole lot of stuff without paying all the holding costs or having the risk of owning the property. So first step is buying the property, getting it under terms. So an option term could be 90 days due diligence, subject to, it could be subject to a permit. So that permit could take 6 or 9 months to get through. I suppose the second phase of that is probably the planning. It's about getting the planning advice, making sure the zoning is correct to do 1 into 4. And in Brisbane City Council, for those people that are local, there's some inner city pockets that used to be zoned LMR, low medium residential, and you could buy an 800 square metre block, demolish the house if it was post-war, demolish the post-war house, and you could build 4 nice townhouses, driveway in the middle. That makes sense to you? Driveway in the middle, 2 at the back, 2 at the front. So it's about getting the planning advice and the right planning advice and getting it in writing. So you do that once you've got the property tied up. But you'll know what it is, because one thing that most people don't teach is they teach all these strategies. And like you said, it's like, well, what strategy do I do? What am I looking for? I'm looking for everything. And then 6-12 months later, what do people find? They find nothing. Well, they find nothing that works because they're just jumping around between too many. So you'll already know, hey, this 810 square metre block, it's going to be able to fit 4 3-bedroom townhouses. I already know the configuration: driveway in the middle, 2 at the front, 2 at the back. And I already know that I can fit 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 cars. So this was really popular about 10 years ago, right? I haven't really looked at this space for quite a long time. So it's about knowing your model. So before you even get the planning advice, you already know what it's going to come back at. So one thing with the planning advice is there's a lot of overlays. So that could be flooding, environmental. What else is some bushfire now? Bushfire is quite, that's changed a lot with the Victorian bushfires. So just making sure your overlays don't constrain the site. So you might have an 800 square metre block. You go, great, I'm going to do 4 townhouses. And then your planner comes back and says, oh, you've got a bushfire offset. And so that will mean you might lose 1. So all of a sudden you're into 3. So you just need to know what you're going to get. One of the early steps, once you've gotten through the due diligence, it's actually knowing the numbers, doing the due diligence, but then being able to do that quickly. So like I mentioned before, you sieve out the ones that are no good and you look at the ones that are good. So finance is pretty key. You've got to work out very early on how you're actually going to finance it, unless you've got cash.
Yeah.
Unless you're planning to settle the site and do the development in cash, which I don't know many people doing that. So finance, all that is either getting money from the bank or another source, using other people's money to leverage and buy the property. So that could be buying the property with the bank for 80 or 90% LVR. You could settle it on a residential loan and then look to refinance to do the construction later. Or you might borrow money from friends, family. You might approach an investor that you met at a meetup group, say, for example, and they could put in the deposit, or you could joint venture together. So there's 101 different ways that you can do it. But ultimately, just to wrap up all of it, it's getting finance, being able to finance, 1, the purchase, but then 2, actually delivery of the project. For a development that size, so you'll want to say it's a 1 into 4, financing is a lot easier because it is a small scale. So you might be able to get away with residential finance. So it's with finance, one thing I learned very early on is make sure you've got a good broker. Good brokers are far and few between, so I found. So one key thing, which I was just telling somebody earlier today, is, if your broker's not giving you the answer you want, just compare it to somebody else. I went through 20 brokers on my first development site. 20. Wow. Easy went through 20. And, out of all of that, I only use 2 key brokers now. And I did have relationships with some good bank managers, but the bank changed their policy. And when the bank changed their policy, a lot of the good lenders left. A lot of the good bankers, they left. And the guys that are there, they're constrained by whatever the policy is in CBA or Westpac.
Yeah.
Whereas a broker, they can do everything. So, you find a good broker, you can finance a site, and do it. You can save yourself a lot of money. On a project that size, you probably don't want to do pre-sales just because of the size of it. One thing people want to do is they want to do pre-sales. In a hot market, you could probably get pre-sales by hardly even advertising. In the last 10 years, 11 years, I've never seen the market like this.
Yeah.
And getting pre-sales has never been this easy. So one thing just to remember on that is, when the market's hot, you can get sales, pre-sales. You don't even need to be good. But when the market slows, it's about being able to get those pre-sales or those sales, even in a slow market. And, you pick the right area and you build the right product. Property always sells. So it's about also mitigating your risk on the exit. So, if you can pre-sell, it de-risks everything. And there's a lot of different strategies that we use to pre-sell properly. So it's all about the marketing collateral to pre-sell. And pre-sell a good product is probably the other thing. You see a lot of crap, rubbish that gets pre-sold at high premiums. I'm not that person that wants to pre-sell something and then 10 years later the property's worth less than what we sold it for.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and also I retain some of the properties as well. So if I'm retaining something, I want to know that it's going to grow in value. So I suppose first step is buying. Second one is doing the due diligence and making sure the numbers stack. Doing the documentation, so lodging it with council. Hopefully this isn't too long-winded. Lodging the documentation to allow you to get the permit with council.
Yeah.
Then it's about getting the permit, getting it approved, pre-selling, financing. Then you've got, so this is even before you construct it, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. So everyone's like, oh, well, my builder's a developer. Well, that's great. I've seen a lot of builder developers make no money. I've seen a lot of builder developers make heaps of money, but the skill set is building. Construction is just one of a number of different skill sets. Same with an engineer. People might be thinking, oh, you're an engineer, you already know. Well, actually, an engineer is being an engineer is such a small piece of the pie. So, yeah, before you even construct, you've got to get all your approvals, and that's from council, and then you get your building approval. I'm not a builder personally, so I engage a builder, and I'm not the expert at building, so I engage a good builder. They build it, and then you get completion, settlements, and if you're doing some sales at the end. So hopefully you can wrap that up quickly. Maybe if you repeat that back, and hopefully I haven't covered too much information and made it too convoluted.
No, I think that was really, really well explained. Because I think especially I can speak for myself, when I first started looking into development, as simple as it sounds, just tell me the process. Actually, it's hard to find the process online and from someone who's actually done it. It's easy to put 5 boxes on a piece of paper and say, this is the process. But the granularity, the detail, the nuance is so different that it's good to understand why they are what they are and the order that they're in, not just the titles. I think you did a great job. So if I kind of echo that back, first of all, it's actually finding the site, buying it, and ideally buying it off market, under market value, make your money on the way in. And then once you've bought that site, you might have some terms where you're not fully committed just yet. And then you do your due diligence. You make sure that you can actually develop what you want to develop. You find the highest and best use of that site. And once you have that kind of feasibility, to some extent, in stone, then you can lock in your finance, whether it's through a friend or family, bank, private, whatever it is. and then you can go through the process of finalizing the permits, lodging your application, getting the building approval, tendering out to the builders, getting the thing built, and then up selling it. So none of this is, quote unquote easy, but I think what I would tell myself, and I think what people would love to hear, is that it's not actually that hard either. Like oftentimes it can become super overwhelming, super confusing. And we're not talking about a couple of $1,000s. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and people kind of just buckle in fear. It doesn't sound like you were in that boat when you started, Adam, but I can definitely remember, like, when I was exposing myself to my first developments, I wasn't doing them personally, but being involved with them, I was kind of like, oh, like this is, it's a lot going on. So I think it's really important for people to hear the process. Thanks for sharing that. And maybe what we'll sort of finish up on this session, and guys that are listening, please let us know if this is valuable. Leave a yes below. If you want more content, more episodes, more shows, more videos on property development, if you want to know how to make lump sum profits, if you want us to go deeper into the process, if you want us to talk about more deals, leave a yes below, and that way we'll get some reciprocation. Actually do that. I think the last thing that I'll ask from you, Adam, is like someone who's kind of, you're young, but you've kind of been there, done that to some extent. For someone who's looking for their first property development, they're looking for their first deal, what are like the 3 biggest pieces of advice that they can learn from you? You've done all the way from a cosmetic reno, structural reno, townhouses, commercial, service stations, all that kind of thing. Maybe it's a principle, or maybe it's actually a very practical hack or practical suggestion from your real world experience. What are 3 pieces of advice that you could give to someone who's, really just trying their hardest to get out of their 9 to 5?
Yeah, okay. I suppose think of it like building a house, because that's development in its simplest form. So don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't need to be complicated. Leave that for your consultant. So probably number 1 is don't overcomplicate it. It's not complicated. Vacant land, you build something on it, somebody lives in it if it's resi, or if it's commercial, somebody leases it and a business goes in there. That's as simple as it is. It's probably number 2, it's active. You need to actively find the property. You've got to drive your consultants, and you're the one that's going to make it happen. But that active input pays handsomely, and obviously it allowed me to quit my job very early on in the piece. And actually, when I quit my job, I actually went to a new level because I had so much more time. And it's funny how people say, I've got no time. I don't want to bang on too much. Actually, let me do the third, and then I'll tell you the excuses I hear why I can't be active. So 1 is keep it simple. Number 2, I think, is find a model that works. Have a look in your local area for developments that people are doing. A good telltale sign of profitable developments is stuff that's getting built. So if you're in a suburb and there's lots of developments, generally people are making money. So at the time I was in Morningside for my first development, there were other development applications in play. There were really successful developers doing developments in that suburb. So I remember one thing someone said to me really early on in the piece was, yeah, that's a really, like someone that knew Brisbane, that's a really good suburb, and we're looking for developments in that. That was another developer. So yeah, good telltale sign. Get a model that works, that successful developers are using. I think the third one, like everything else, and I don't want to sound too like methodical, but I think it's just start doing something.
Yeah.
Start looking for development sites, start educating yourself. There's a lot that you can do online, and even through your local councils that you never used to be able to do. You used to have to actually go into council. So you can be on your computer any time of the day. You don't even have to be at that location now. You can be sitting by the beach or at a cafe, and you can be looking at other people's development sites, because that's all public information. So all of the application material is public information. And just get an idea on just something as simple as building a house. or doing a 1 into 2, all that information is readily available through the council's website. I'd be highly surprised if there wasn't a single council in Australia that, and someone will probably correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know of any council in Australia that doesn't have all of their stuff online. So, just search for your local council, and most of them have gone to a system called PD Online, where you just search the address of the property and it brings up everything. So it will bring up the house application. If someone's put in an application for a swimming pool, it'll bring that up as well.
Yeah.
It'll bring up the 1 into 2. So you can kind of get an idea without even having to do it yourself. You can even just step through the process that somebody else has gone through. So if you're thinking about doing a development, have a look in your own area, look where there's developments happening, write down the address and go just search the address. Search, like Brisbane City Council, PD Online, or planning scheme constraints or something like that. There's some councils have different iterations of the same thing. Search for that address and you can bring up all of that information pretty easily. You can have a look at the plans, the consultant reports. But yeah, just start was the last one. Just start. Honestly, people come with excuses, and we've all got our own excuses. I have my own excuses sometimes why I don't wake up when it's freezing cold and go and exercise. But my reason was to get out of work. But when I was 22, we were working 60, 70 hours a week at work by the time I was 25 before I ended up finishing up. I was doing 80 hours at work, and then I'd go back to my room and do another 20 hours on doing my development site. So if people are working 40 hours a week, you got so much free time. You don't have to spend 20 hours a week doing it by any means. I mean, even just a few hours a week just to start. And you could do a few hours a week for 12 months and make $100,000.
Yeah.
And it might end up being more than what you've made in your job.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's not about time at all, right? It's kind of a little bit fluffy to say it, but it's really about drive. If you have the drive, you make the time. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and also the skill set, being focused, spending the time on the right things, not the wrong things.
Right.
So there's always a learning curve with everything.
Yeah.
So you might spend time looking at applications. That's going to take a bit of time. You may not know what you're looking at to start off with, but if you look at it enough, it just becomes ingrained in what you're doing. It's the same with anything. Same with riding a bike. Really, there's a lot of people that are doing development. There's a lot of people that are making really good money. There's no reason. I've seen all walks of life, or people of all walks of life doing development. Not educated, highly educated, chefs, butchers, IT consultants. Like, there is no skill set. There's no qualification. You don't have to go to uni to do a course. You don't have a $50,000 HECS debt. You don't need any qualification. No one's going to ask you for your resume.
No, like you're your own boss, right? I think that's the thing. Like, there was this book I read once. It wasn't Think and Grow Rich. I think it was some other one. And they literally said, there'll come a day where you see, someone you went to school with, someone you might have been a colleague of or a friend from the past, and you see them and they're super successful. Now, monetarily, in a materialistic concept, they're super successful. They've got the money, all that kind of thing. And then you kind of think, hey, that person wasn't even that smart, or that person didn't even get the grades that I got, or that person, wasn't even that driven. I mean, they never even studied as hard as I did, right? I think everyone can relate to that. Those people who are so much more successful than you, but you're like, they weren't even more talented than me. It's not about talent. It's not about formal education. It's not about anything. The people who are successful are the ones who start. Simple. That's it. You start, you take one step, next step, 3 steps, 4 steps. Adam is way more intelligent than me. I can say that much. I did a Bachelor of Commerce, but even I can do it. Anyone can do it. It's not that hard. But thank you. I really resonated with that last one, because that really is a success ingredient for anything in life, whether it's money or anything, relationships. You just have to start, right? Just take the first step. All right.
Do the due diligence.
Yeah, do the due diligence.
And then decide whether or not you want to proceed.
Yeah, figure out the right strategy. Anyway, slippery slope. No, but thanks for your time on the show, Adam. I really appreciate it, guys. Like, if you, this was kind of different for me. I don't really talk about development. I don't talk about my development exposure that much. I don't talk about active strategies so much here on Facebook or YouTube or anywhere. If this is something you want to hear more of from me, if this is something you want to hear more of from Adam, if this is something you're actually genuinely interested in, please, please, please leave a yes below, YES, put it in the comments. And then if I have enough yeses, then we can start to take things further. We can start to bring you more content just like this, because development is something that can accelerate your journey to financial freedom or financial independence. And having a systematic or structured approach to development is something that can turbocharge even that. All right, so we're really excited, really motivated to bring you lots of content on spearheading your development journey, but let us know if that's actually something you want to do. If it's not, then we won't worry about it. But thank you. Thanks, Adam. Anything lastly that you want to say?
No, thanks, PK. Thanks for having me. Hopefully people have gotten value out of the video. And yeah, we would, I suppose, like to share a bit more. If people like it, if not, no hard feelings.
For sure, for sure. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Adam. And guys, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. If you want to see more content like this, hit the like button. That way, this video goes to more and more people. Thank you for listening if you're on my podcast. And as always, guys, my Facebook community, I'm always grateful that you're part of my community. I'm always grateful to be able to serve you. My name is PK, and this is Adam, and you have a fantastic day ahead. Catch ya.